Welcome everyone to another episode of the Pivot, the Maltigos podcast, where our experts and special guests are covering a wide range of topics interesting for the investigators worldwide. My name is Carlos Fragoso, a principal subject matter expert working here at Maltigo and hosting our guest today. If you are in the OSINT field, you definitely know him and probably doesn't need much introduction for many of you. But anyway, I'm going to introduce him for sure, for those of you who don't know him. But we are today so honored to be talking to a real OSINTer with blinking big words, Micah Hoffman. So, Micah, also known as a web breacher, has been very active in the information technology field since 1998, working for different companies before jumping into cybersecurity consulting space, working for federal, commercial, and internal customers, conducting many different cyber-related tasks like penetration testing, OSINT investigations, APT hunting, and also risk assessments. Maybe some of you also know Mika because he is also a SAN certified instructor starting in 2013, being the author and lead instructor of the SAN Sec 487. I don't know if I say the right number or not, the open source intelligence gathering and analysis. And he's also an author of several tools like What's My Name, like this a very well-known OSINT Recon tool. Also, Mika in 2018 founded his own consulting company, Spotlight Infosec, focusing in OSINT and cybersecurity. Last but not least, probably many of you have been listening to the very interesting OSINT Curious community podcast that Mika is leading. And today we are going to, let's be curious and deep dive into Micah's life a little bit. So welcome, Micah, and we are so honored to have you today.
Thank you for having me, Carlos. It's good to be here.
So probably the first thing many people who in some way was landing here in the OSINT field and saw your face in those podcasts got inspired by this discipline, but probably many of them might be wondering what brought you into the OSINT sphere or discipline? What were your first step, and who, if it was the case, who inspired you to land here?
Well, I won't start in the very beginning, but let's just say I was doing cybersecurity for many years, and I had progressed through offensive security, doing security testing, penetration testing, that kind of work. And I had really found myself gravitating towards penetration testing of web pages. And I remember doing a penetration test where a customer asked me to test the security of their website. And I remember working on their website, but before I actually started to penetration test it, our process specified that we had to, if the site was on the internet, we would have to Google the name and see what came up, because you never knew what came up. Mm-hmm. And I remember this very distinctly, that I was looking at a website and I took the name out of the title of the browser tab, and I just took that and put it into Google, and I found a help document that was a PDF that was created by the developers of the website. I was like, all right, well, I'll read this. So I started looking through it, and inside of there, I am not kidding, there was a section that said, if you need help logging into the application, use your username like this, and it gave a sample one, and then use your password like that, and it gave a sample password. And I thought, what if these people actually used this username and password to get into the application? And since I had the right to do it, I simply logged into the application using those credentials, and I had access. I didn't have to penetration test or anything. I just was simply finding things on the internet and then using them. And that was the time when I realized that what I called reconnaissance at that time, and later found out was open source intelligence, or OSINT, was really a powerful discipline that I wanted to be a part of.
So that's why Web Breacher, your nickname, comes from.
That is one of the meanings of web breacher. Absolutely. Breaking into websites.
Very good. Yeah, definitely. I think many of us that have been in the field also for so many years probably feel like the now we are giving different buzzwords to things that we were already doing in the past, because OSINT has been a discipline from very old, but the reconnaissance part started probably more from the pen testing, red teaming world. But yeah, I definitely agree that it's a very nice start in the field. But you, from your side, what do you think nowadays? Because you were talking about probably when you started. Nowadays, things have changed a little bit every year, and now with the big changes we're living nowadays, what do you think that the OSINTer needs nowadays to really do awesome work?
That is a very challenging question. Back when I started, I was approaching open source intelligence from the perspective of a penetration tester, a cybersecurity person. And so my view of what I needed to know was really tainted by that perspective. I needed to know IP addresses, domain names, DNS, who is wireless. I need to focus on those things that would allow me to pivot into the application or systems I needed to find or test. But over the years, I've recognized that there are a huge number of, well, specialties within the world of open source intelligence. It's kind of like saying cybersecurity. Hey, you do cybersecurity. Well, that could mean a huge number of different topics, from penetration testing to digital forensics to policy and compliance and more. Same thing over in OSINT. And so the core skills that I think are really important for everybody to have, no matter their discipline, are things like having solid analysis skills, having solid investigative skills. These are not hands-on technical skills, but it's the ways that we think about our investigation and the data that comes out. And then the final thing that I would say is a very core component to most everything are search engines. You have to know how to work with search engines, decrease the amount of data that comes back, and really focus in on what you need to be successful.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think many people, they're thinking more about the technical skills, but something we find out is that really there are soft skills related with how we just think about things, no? How to approach a problem and how to deal with information. Because nowadays the interfaces might change, but the logic behind is similar.
Yeah.
Cool. So great. Nowadays we are living a lot of changes. Probably one of the biggest changes were all these social media environments that are providing a lot of information about users, about different groups. And we have seen a lot that there is an evolution now. This is a new word, the metaverse, and many people will be probably meeting somewhere virtually in 3D with a headset or in a different way. So, what do you think about the future? What are your thoughts about what's coming? How to face these kind of challenges that are coming?
I think, again, I would go back to the core of what we do. At the very heart of what we as OSINT people do is we take some requirement, we go to the internet, usually, sometimes not the internet, but most of the time the internet, and we find things that we can use to answer that initial mission requirement. So I think the development of all of these virtual reality systems, all of these other systems that we haven't even thought of yet, it's just an extension of what we have. My job as an OSINT person is the same thing for all of those people out there that are in cyber. It's to continually learn and push myself to test out, to be curious about these new systems, whether they're alt-right social media platforms or new places that are pushing out satellite imageries of conflicts and war zones, or 3D worlds that are just being developed. It's our job to stay up to date on whatever's within our sphere of OSINT that we care about, and understand that we have to try some things and that the world continues to develop. Now, this does not mean, Carlos, that you and I have to literally be in every single social media platform, try out every single tool, although a lot of people like trying that. I think one of the challenges of being an OSINT or a cyber person is reducing that area that you have the need to know about, right? You can easily be distracted by a huge number of things in either field, and it's focusing our efforts on what's important to us, our clients, our companies, if we're working in the field of OSINT. It's focusing on those things that is so very important, and that will help guide where we need to be in the future.
That's a really interesting answer, Micah. I believe that many people think that OSINTers are like superheroes of the internet.
We absolutely are.
We definitely we are, but we are not. We cannot solve everything without context, because now we see, for instance, now with the different geopolitical situations, sometimes just linguistic requirements. We have part of the internet that is in Arabic, in Chinese, in other languages. That this is a challenge for many of us. So, what do you think if for those who are starting, if you could give them like some shortcuts about how to, if you are starting right now and you had to focus and get those distractions out of your path, what would you recommend to them?
Sure. I do this all the time, whether it's on Twitter to people that ask for, hey, I'm starting in the field, what do I do? Or whether it's somebody that direct messages me somewhere, or I meet at a conference. My biggest recommendation to people nowadays is don't go at it alone. You know, when somebody that's a random person hits me up on social media and says, hey, I'm new, I want direction. Yeah, I can give them a couple of websites to visit, or some cool videos that I've created or you've created, or I can point them towards the OSINT framework.de site with a huge number of resources. But OSINT isn't about a tool, a technique. It's about a mindset. It's about learning. It's about working on a network. And so my biggest suggestion to everybody is find a team. Find people where you can talk. Find a community that you can join, where you're not just asking Micah or Carlos, how do I do this? Do you have a resource for that? That doesn't scale at all. So what I suggest is, when you mentioned that I'm part of the OSINT Curious Project, a nonprofit that has online free resources for people, we have a Discord community, and you can join that Discord community, and there are thousands of other people from around the world that have a huge amount of knowledge that me and you simply can't match. So my suggestion is go to iam.osintcurio.us/Discord and join the Discord, or join some other site where there are people that are willing to help you learn, and provide you those answers to your questions.
That's a really good advice, because at the end, everything is about humans, as you mentioned, probably with the lockdown situation, that we have not been able probably to network as much as possible we did in the past. Probably in the past we had too much events, probably. During the year. I must admit I was traveling too much, probably. But anyway, I think we are missing that, meeting the people. But now you mentioned that we have these online communities, but many people think probably OSINT Curious have been there all many years, and I think it will be highly interesting for many people to understand how did OSINT Curious started. I mean, how did you decide to build this community? Which were the first steps? And so, go ahead.
Sure. The OSINT Curious Project started in 2018 when myself and several other OSINT people were at a conference over in the Netherlands. And we started talking about doing good investigative work. We started talking about sharing our knowledge online. And we noticed around that time that there were some people that were coming into the open source intelligence social media space just what appeared to just try to and they were trying to what appeared to be doing like grabbing users, becoming more popular and getting a following, but their analyses, the things that they were stating were not optimal, we'll put it that way. And so what myself and some other people decided to do was create the OSINT Curious Project, where we would create a trusted resource of talented people around the world that release free products, whether they're videos, live streams, or blog posts that people could trust. You know, we wanted that name that you could trust, that actionable intelligence, that data where people could say, you know what, anything that comes off of this site that has no advertising or anything like that, I can trust and I can use in my work. And I don't have to wonder, hey, is there some ulterior motive or something? And so that's how we were created. We started publishing blog posts. We started doing webcasts at that time. And over the years, um, the community has been very, very good to us. We now have the Discord. We have thousands and thousands of followers, and we really have a lot of people that rely on OSINT Curious for that continued good work.
And in your opinion, what have been the challenges of raising an online community? Because something many people try, they put a lot of effort, but it's complicated. Probably you need other people on your side to help you push, probably. But I would like to know from your mouth to know exactly what were the challenges and how did you find out let's say the right formula for it.
I'm still trying to develop that right formula. I really do think it's an evolving process because if you think of the community, it's not a single entity. We're not talking about a homogenous group of people in one locality, one little space in the world. We're talking about people of a diverse set of backgrounds, languages, cultures that have lots of different requirements. And so what we needed to do as OSINT community builders was come up with the people that could lead these communities, come up with some direction, and constantly take the pulse of the community to find out what it is that they want to be doing and can we provide that for them. There's some other things that go into it that are more on the administrative side or the legal side, and but essentially you need to figure out what it is that you want to provide to people and help them to consume that and to help the community grow through their support, through encouragement, and sometimes just through yelling and screaming.
You must be so proud of the work being done, and for sure, I highly recommend for the listeners of this podcast to Patreon this project because, as Micah mentioned, people doesn't notice how much complicated is generating trusted content. It takes time.
Yeah.
It's not like just popping out the webcam and and ready to go. You need to really prepare things, and that's a lot of work. So congratulations
Yeah.
for that.
Well, and that's a very important part, Carlos, is people see us jump on a live stream or a recorded podcast or something, and they're like, "Wow, that went really smooth. The conversation was good." They don't see the hours and hours and hours of scheduling, of creation of questions and content, of other things, and post-production that go into the final product. They just see, oh, there's a free video that I can watch, and so, yeah, we have a Patreon patron page. We also have some sponsors that help support our community and our work.
Cool. Okay, so let's move to another topic related with training. As I mentioned at the beginning, you have been highly involved in the development of the OSINT curriculum in SANS. I think it will be interesting for our audience to understand a little bit how this about this trip, and also as you recently started some other professional projects that are right now ongoing, so or coming very soon. So if you can talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So back in 2016, I was talking with a couple of colleagues within the SANS Institute, and we noticed that, or actually, I noticed that the courses that were being given inside SANS had small pieces of what we had called reconnaissance. And one person did it one way and one author did it another. And I thought, what's really missing is this centralization of this is a recognized discipline. Let's build this class. So I created the Sec 47 class. It launched in 2018. It's still going strong. In January of this year, I just essentially turned it over to SANS, and I am no longer associated with SANS or that course. But over the years, we developed the course. I created the curriculum, the SANS OSINT Summit, which is coming up in April. So there are a whole bunch of things that were created. And then in January, I decided that it was time to go ahead and start doing some more things for my company. And so I created the My OSINT Training website, myosint.training. And there I have a whole bunch of very reasonably priced classes, video classes that people can purchase on a lot of different topics. And right now, they're just kind of interesting topics to me. Everything from using Discord, everything from using Obsidian, for documentation purposes, to using CyberChef and Python tools. And in the coming 6 to 8 months, there'll be a whole bunch more core OSINT classes up there that anybody can afford and take on their own time.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point about this OSINT training platform. You mentioned that probably in the past we were used to big, long trainings that, of course, they are highly needed. Especially, you need to deep dive, go in depth, just to you are new in the field, or maybe you just need to renew certifications, whatever. But I think nowadays we need more this kind of pills of knowledge. Like you mentioned that the Discord or some tool, and you need to save something that is very precious, that is time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, at the end, all of us have the knowledge probably and the skills to solve the problem in hours or days, but probably someone that has been doing that and can give you in 5 minutes something very valuable. So
exactly. Yeah, and that is exactly the mindset, Carlos, that I was going for with my OSINT.training, is that for years, I'd been giving 6 days of knowledge to people. And don't get me wrong, the class is very comprehensive. If you start in the beginning and you end at the end, you will know a lot about open source intelligence. But invariably, what I had people tell me was, hey, days 1 and 3 were great, but 4, I'll never use anything on day 4 because that's not the OSINT that I do. Or 5, we have a whole day, we have a whole team that does dark web work, so I never get to touch that. It's good to know of it, but I'll never use it in my life. And I started thinking, well, what if people could just choose the parts of the course that they wanted to or needed to know? So Carlos, you have a need to know how to do user enumeration, and you have a username and you want a Python script and you just don't know how to do it. Well, you buy that class on using the Sherlock tool or username enumeration, and you just get that skill, and you can go on with your day. And it's a 20-minute or it's a 1-hour class instead of 6 days. So when I was building this, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Matrix. I know it's a little bit older, but when Trinity, just has that uplink to the base of her skull, and she's like, I need to learn how to fly this helicopter, and they upload those skills, and she can fly. That's what I was thinking when I created my OSINT training. That people just need to know a skill, not all of the skills necessarily.
That's pretty cool. And what about the CTFs? And because I think one of the growing trends in the last years have been that people have been able to gather knowledge in different trainings by, let's say, real-world experience. But there is a growing trend of the cyber exercises, CTFs, so that people, it's like going to the gym, no? At the end, it's like let's improve my muscles. Well, I don't go much to the gym, I must say that. But let's talk about these kind of platforms and things. So
Absolutely.
from your side, I think you are working in a project in that side. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So within the open source intelligence world over the last, I would say 4 years or so, we've seen an increase in the amount of opportunities to practice our trade craft and practice in safe situations. There are Twitter accounts like Quiz Time that you can follow, and Monday through Friday they release some image or video or something, and they say find this bit of detail. Or we have the GeoGuessr game that you can play using Google Street View imagery to figure out geolocation, where you are in the world. And you're absolutely right. I think it's a lot more fun for people to go out and try their actual skills instead of just theoretically learning them. And so myself and Griffin Glynn and Espen Ringstad created the OSINT Games platform, which is an online learning platform for open source intelligence, where we choose challenges, we have questions for you to answer, and you simply go and find the answers, put it into the system, and then you get some points. And the thing that I've figured out after years and years of doing training is that people like to compete, but there are some people that like to compete slowly, and that's absolutely okay. So the OSINT Games platform is a capture the flag, but it's a 2-month-long capture the flag. So there's no rush for you to compete in one day. You can just take a little bit of time each day. And many of our users have really loved the fact that they can jump in and jump out of it over the months, weeks.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially for people who have a work and a life,
And kids.
family. Yeah, it's not easy. Maybe you can just invest 15 minutes, but then you have to jump off because your boy is crying, or then you have to go to a meeting. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Absolutely, and that's one of the neat ways that we designed these capture the flags, is that you can come in, do the work. If you want to just power through these, our current capture the flag has 100 questions. If you want to power through them and just do them all, we've had people that complete them in about 10 to 12 hours of dedicated activity. But most of our users, over 100 of them, over 120 of them, I'd say probably, are just making steady progress, solving the questions. And sometimes, as we hear from some of our users, they're actually taking the time to go do some research, then come back and apply that research in our CTF to gain the points. So it really is a learning CTF instead of a testing kind of CTF, which is something that we really wanted to do.
Very cool. And are there any upcoming projects that you can share with us? They're so secret, or something you can give us to our audience?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of things that are coming up, some of which I can't share yet, but I will say that so I mentioned in My OSINT Training, we have in the next 6 months, there'll be a whole bunch more core OSINT classes on reverse image searching and geolocation and all. In OSINT Games, we're working, this capture the flag will end on April 30th, May 1st. And then we'll have a little bit of a break, and then we'll start our advanced scenario-based capture the flag, which will be a little bit different format, but still equally as fun. And there are just a huge number of other things. OSINT Curious is revamping their Discord, which by the time this goes live, it might already be changed around. We've got new blog posts that I'm publishing, that they're publishing. It's an exciting time, Carlos. It really is.
I see. I can see it on your face.
Yeah.
You're having fun. That's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. So let's jump to a different topic. Coming back to the OSINT world. But if you were like going to alone to an island and you had to take 2 or 3 tools, which are your favorite tools that you think you will apart from a search engine for sure.
And yeah, absolutely.
Probably it will be the first one. But in your opinion, what are your favorite tools? Could be extensions of the browser or like command line tools.
Sure. So I would have to start out with Maltego, a Maltego case file, Maltego
Oh.
Pro. That's
You
all.
don't, you don't have to
I'm
say
gonna
that.
take all. That was the answer, right? No. So for me, I've been very involved lately in using the Obsidian documentation tool to record my work, and I think that it's an amazing note-taking tool that has lots of applications for cyber and OSINT people as well as just anybody that wants to take notes. But a lot of the extensions and plugins are really good for augmenting how we take notes and connecting data. So that would be number one. Number two, I'd have to take a web browser, of course. I think I'd probably have to take a Chrome or Chromium-based one, because my third tool would absolutely be probably Instant Data Scraper.
Cool.
It's a Google Chrome plugin that will examine a page and then download data on that page to a CSV or an XLSX document. So you just load up somebody's Twitter timeline or Facebook friends, you say download, and it'll download it for you. It's amazing for documentation.
No API key needed directly.
None. Nope. And it'll even actually scroll down the page. It takes control. It's embedded in your Chrome browser. So it will scroll down the page. It'll virtually click the next button to go to the next set of results if you have multiple pages. It's a really, really cool tool. And those three things, Obsidian for documentation, a browser to find things, and Instant Data Scraper to extract them, that coupled with my brain, I think I would be absolutely in a great shape on a desert island. I'll need internet too, but we have Starlink, so we'll be fine there.
Cool. One of the most important things I always try to, also going back to the mindset part, to train to people or to make them aware of that, is operational security, OPSEC. Because many people they're not using OSINT just for playing, but they're using for work, and probably you're dealing with very sensitive things like extreme groups or sensitive individuals that you might be investigating. What will be your advices for protecting the nowadays investigations?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think it's actually been a disservice that many people have done to show how easy it is to do some open source intelligence without applying the warning of protect yourself. Make sure that you are distancing yourself, your system, your business from being tracked and being connected to whatever open source intelligence work you're doing. Even if you're doing legal OSINT, which is all we're talking about here. We're not talking about doing like human or social engineering or anything like that, which goes way beyond OSINT. Even if we're just doing data collection, sometimes the tools that we use, like social media sites, they require certain things of us, like having a user account, and doing open source intelligence in those places means that you should really use a different account than your personal or your professional one, because that can be associated with whatever activities you're doing. And I don't know if you ever saw the Netflix show Don't F With Cats. It was a very big one years ago, and essentially some people figured out that a person was harming animals, and they used their own personal accounts on, I believe it was Facebook, to research this person, create groups and other things that person then infiltrated, and they really put themselves at risk. So one of the first things I talk to people about in my courses is, how do you protect yourself, your systems, and your employer before you even run your first query on a search engine? Doing that setup is very important.
Yeah, I strongly recommend for all of our audience to really check your data on the internet. I think it's a good advice because you never know where is your data. Probably we would like to avoid being online as much as possible, but that's not possible nowadays, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably nowadays we are not concerned of how much data from us is right there. No.
Absolutely. So there's protecting yourself using operational security, and then there's also testing yourself, which is kind of what you're getting into there, where if we're going to be doing work in the OSINT space, we want to make sure that other people can't find us as easily or find sensitive data about us. And that is really, really challenging for many of us in certain places over here in the United States, where our data privacy laws are just terrible. It allows companies, people, and others to share data about us without our permission. So it's really challenging. Even over there in the EU, there are companies and people that are sharing your information. And even if they're not, by you participating in running races or biking races, by you winning a CTF using your hacker name, all of those things can lead back to you, your behaviors, and your loved ones ultimately.
Is there any, let's say, probably you have already during many years delivered thousands of investigations, but do you still remember any of them? Like could be funny to explain, or something that pops up to your mind because it was the first time you did something? So what is the first thing that pops to your mind when I talk about funny or interesting story? Of course, the data you can share from it.
Sure. Well, it's funny that the things that pop into my mind are the times I messed up, the times I made mistakes, and we all make mistakes, right? It's just a matter of learning from them. And I remember this one time I tell this story in some of my trainings. I was just getting into the world of OSINT, and I had found a person, and my goal was to try to figure out about this person's background because they were being targeted for some cybersecurity things. And so we wanted to understand them better from an internet perspective, and they gave us permission to look into their social media accounts. So using research accounts or sock puppet accounts, I looked at their Facebook page, and I remember seeing pictures of that person, his wife, and his 3 adult children. And I'm like, all right, this is this person, wife, 3 adult children. And I cataloged more pictures of them from Facebook. And then I remember going to another social media site. I think it might have been his Instagram. And over there, I see that same man, but I see him with a different woman and different children that are younger. And I just start jumping to conclusions and misanalyzing it. And oh my gosh, he's cheating on his spouse. Oh, he has 2 wives. It's 2 families. Holy cow. And it was really good that a senior person kind of just put his hand on my shoulder and said, Micah, calm down. Let's brainstorm. Let's work through this. What are some other things? And it turned out that one was his wife and his kids. The other was his sister and his nieces and nephews. Not a big deal, but I remember jumping to conclusion and improperly analyzing that situation, so much so that nowadays I'm always trying to corroborate, always trying to verify and validate whatever I find to make sure that it is accurate and it is correct.
Yeah, definitely. I think many people think when you are probably at the last phase of the investigation, writing a report, that we are supposed to provide an assessment for everything we find. And at the end, maybe it's not. We need to go back to the requirements, because maybe we are just required to collect the data, but there are other analysts doing that part of the work. So for us, yeah, definitely. But it's a funny story. It's thinking about 2 wives. Yeah, I think we are humans, and probably that's also the experience helps a lot to get these distractions away from the mind.
Well, and nowadays, Carlos, with fast forward to 2022, with all of the disinformation and misinformation being shared on social media, it's easy to repeat a message, to share some content that is unvalidated and unverified. There were a whole bunch of videos that were purported to show police officers over here in the United States pre-positioning bricks and rocks in areas of the United States so that protesters would have them when they protested, essentially saying that the police officers are helping out with the riots by positioning these things. And if you looked at it, you saw police officers offloading pickup trucks worth of bricks and rocks in these exact areas where the riots were. Well, if you look at the videos critically and take younger Micah's perspective of always validating and verifying the work, you could see that those videos were created years before the actual riots broke out. They were not of that area or what have you. And so nowadays that just simple requirement to validate and verify everything that you see and share online is so very important, especially in OSINT.
Yeah, definitely. It's something very, very challenging. I think we see it all day long in media. Many people that's believing information that is too old. And I think that comes to one of the last topics. We are running out of time, but I think it's interesting to jump into the one final topic of what's coming. The new areas of research right now in cyber, in OSINT. Probably the example you were giving, we see nowadays with all this deep fake, now with a nice gaming card, you have the ability just to fake someone with some AI software. Yeah. So what do you think about which are the challenges and probably the research areas where OSINTers need to deep dive to face them?
I go back to my cybersecurity background. And I think about the cat and mouse game, the two sides of the issue that I always worked on. There's the defender and the attacker. And over in the OSINT world, it's the same thing. We as OSINT people exploit the fact that there is public data or non-private data that is out there that we can collect. And the challenge nowadays is kind of a good one, because a lot of platforms are making their systems more private. They are training their users to become more private and not share as much content. And that makes our jobs a lot more challenging. It's not impossible, but there's certain techniques that are more challenging to do now. So I think one of the biggest things that I will say is the future relies on us staying creative, staying flexible, and continuing to try and experiment with new platforms, websites, new tools, and doing those things. Because I can tell you that yes, virtual reality is probably going to be big in some case, or the metaverse, if it ever gets made, might be interesting. But you know what? We've seen those types of emerging platforms before, when we had gaming networks or even Second Life back years ago. We saw those things come and go. So what doesn't come and go is our methodology and that constant adaptation to the ever-changing nature of OSINT and the data that's out there.
Cool. Okay, so let's go then to the last question, probably more going back to yourself. And how do you see yourself in 4 or 5 years? I mean, you're now starting a lot of things, but if you were now in a few years' time and you look back to what you did, what would you expect? What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve in the future?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I get a lot of joy from is continuing to work with supporting and strengthening the OSINT community, bringing people together to share with or without me and OSINT Curious, but just bringing people together. That I get a lot of joy out of that. So I would like to stay involved in the OSINT community and continuing to help strengthen and grow it. And professionally, it's an interesting question because with the departure from SANS earlier this year, I really have had to re-examine my 5 and 10 year plans, or even my 1, 10, and 5 year plans. I think really in 5 years or so, I'll have a huge number of videos and training courses on My OSINT Training that anybody can purchase, anybody can afford, anybody can take whenever they want to learn whatever skills that they need, coupled with the hands-on training in OSINT Games with my partners, and taking those things and then also bringing that to life through live trainings at conferences or for companies. I think a mix of all of that professionally, along with speaking, will be where I see myself. Absolutely.
Cool. Hopefully, we will see some of those live trainings if we don't have these more pandemias, wars, or unlikely events we are living, for sure.
I'm hoping that we continue to see the world opening up too, but I'm prepared in case we don't.
So hopefully I will be there with you too, and having probably we can meet again in a few years' time. So what can I say? We have been so proud of having you today here, opening your mind, your heart to the community, and have fun and enjoy the ride, your new ride. And we are here to help the community. You are part of the community, and we are here also to help you. So,
well, I appreciate you having me on the show, and I appreciate all that Maltego does for the OSINT and cyber communities.
So thank you to our audience also for listening until the end, and see you very soon in another Pivot podcast. See you soon. Goodbye.